Welcome to Nightmare Narratives. If you like real horror stories like us, please subscribe and like the video. Enjoy.
The cold night in Ilikiluki. My great-grandfather's life was irrevocably altered by an encounter during his service in World War II. Hailing from the city of Yaroslava in Russia, he was a devoted patriot who fought for the Soviet Union during the war. One particular incident, following the Battle of Ilikiluki, left an indelible mark on his psyche. The night in question was among the coldest he had ever experienced. The battle, though not a major one, had exacted a toll in terms of lives lost and bloodshed. As my great-grandfather and his comrades sought refuge in a relatively unscathed building, a rare sense of warmth enveloped them, allowing for a brief respite from the harsh realities of war. Amid their camaraderie and celebration, two unwelcome fellow soldiers disrupted the evening. Their boisterousness and unpleasant behavior grated on my great-grandfather and his comrade Sergei. Seeking solace from the commotion, they ventured into the frigid night. With cigarettes in hand, they stood outside, their breath forming icy clouds in the air. Conversation flowed freely as they reveled in the triumph of the battle that had raged on for nearly 2 months. Yet their joviality was abruptly shattered by an eerie, distant scream that pierced the silence. The instinct of battle-hardened soldiers propelled them back into the building to rally their comrades. As they ventured into the woods, dread crept over my great-grandfather. The faint cries and the trail of blood in the snow hinted at an ominous revelation, guiding them deeper into the darkness. The source of the crying proved to be a nightmarish tableau, a scene of grotesque horror. 2 German soldiers lay before them, one dead, the other alive. The living soldier was traumatized, his leg torn apart and his chest a canvas of blood. The words he uttered were foreign, incomprehensible, but his despair was palpable. My great-grandfather, drawn to the deceased soldier, was met with a ghastly sight: mutilation, missing limbs, and a face stripped of skin. The grotesque tableau was accompanied by a disconcerting odor, a peculiar scent that defied description, unlike the stench of death. Amid this macabre scene, the soldiers were confronted by something that transcended the boundaries of their comprehension, a terror that lurked in the darkest recesses of the forest, the hidden playmate. During my childhood, my family resided in a high ranch-style house with an unusual layout. I was the oldest child and the only boy, which earned me the privilege of having the most spacious bedroom downstairs. The room was a haven for a growing youngster, with plenty of space to play and relax. One fateful summer, a series of inexplicable events transpired, forever altering the way I perceived safety. At the age of 12, I found myself inexplicably waking up in the dead of night, my heart pounding with an unidentifiable dread. As a child, I knew that such sleep disturbances were unusual. The room was equipped with a fan to combat the summer heat, providing a constant, soothing white noise. There should have been no reason for me to experience such unease. It all began when, one night, I awoke in the early hours, compelled to replenish my glass of water. As I stood at the bathroom sink, I could swear I heard faint sounds emanating from my room. The faucet's flow ceased, and I strained to listen. There was nothing but the familiar hum of the fan. Curiosity and apprehension spurred me to investigate further. I made my way to the doorway, peering into my room, but my unease only deepened. Something felt inherently wrong. A nameless fear gnawed at the edges of my consciousness, making me doubt my perception. Ignoring the dread that gripped me, I tiptoed upstairs to the living room, where I hoped to find solace on the couch. Eventually, sleep claimed me once more. But to my disconcertment, the cycle repeated itself. Night after night, I found myself waking up in the wee hours, my mind plagued by a nameless dread. This persistent unease was utterly out of place for a child of my age. One night, the events took an even more sinister turn. I awoke to strange sounds emanating from the kitchen, just adjacent to the living room. The ambient glow of the refrigerator's light pierced the darkness, and it was evident that someone was rummaging through its contents. Despite the eerie atmosphere, I was drowsy and dismissed it as a mere figment of my imagination. Footsteps resounded through the house, accompanied by the unsettling realization that a presence had descended into my domain, the downstairs level of the house. Anxiety welled within me, pushing me to action. I bolted upstairs, and as I laid out the situation to my parents, they were immediately concerned. The ensuing series of events, which spanned several nights, would come to shape the contours of my deepest childhood fears. Over a short yet agonizing period, I found myself unable to sleep in my own room. My parents installed security cameras, and we disposed of anything in the fridge that the intruder may have touched. The fear of discovering another person lurking beneath my bed left a deep scar on my psyche. The inexplicable sounds, the hidden intruder, and the eerie nights would forever haunt me, a manifestation of every child's worst nightmare. The intruder next door. My fiancée, Morgan, and I embarked on a new chapter of our lives as we moved into a charming house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The early days in our new home were filled with excitement and dreams of building a life together. Little did we know that our peaceful existence would be violently disrupted by a neighbor whose malevolence would plunge us into a harrowing ordeal. As we navigated the process of settling into our new abode, we eagerly anticipated the warmth of our community. However, an unsettling presence loomed over us, shattering our idyllic expectations. The unnerving ordeal began on an ordinary evening. I sat at the kitchen table, engrossed in my laptop, searching for area rugs to furnish our cozy home. Morgan, my loving fiancée, was diligently preparing a meal in the adjacent kitchen. The air inside was warm and stuffy, prompting me to venture to the back door to slide it open for some much-needed ventilation. But as I gazed upon our backyard, an icy chill coursed through my veins. There, in one of our patio chairs, sat an intruder, his form hunched over, face obscured. Disbelief mingled with a growing sense of dread as I realized our newfound home harbored an unexpected guest. Summoning Morgan to my side, we weighed our options. Should we confront this uninvited visitor, whose ominous presence was seemingly juxtaposed with our dreams of domestic bliss? Panic swirled as we stood together, pondering the next steps. We watched, paralyzed with fear, as the man continued to sit, his head down, a sinister half-smile playing on his lips. He exuded an air of dominance, and despite the shield of glass that separated us, his menacing presence was palpable. His eyes bore into us, and the unsettling tension grew as he focused on Morgan. Obscene comments flowed from his lips, laden with lewd and menacing intent. Disgust and fear wrestled within us as we grappled with our next move. The specter of danger was apparent, and I felt compelled to act. Summoning all the courage I could muster, I knocked on the glass and demanded he vacate our property. The intruder's sinister smile remained, and he seemed to derive amusement from our distress. He made no move to leave. Panic surged through our veins, and I threatened to call the authorities. With trembling fingers, I dialed 911, my voice trembling as I implored them to send the police. The operator kept me on the line as the intruder continued to hurl vile comments and threats our way. We were caught in a nightmarish tableau, trapped in our own home with an uninvited malevolent guest on our doorstep. The arrival of the police did little to quell our anxiety. By the time they reached our home, the intruder had vanished, melting into the shadows of the night. Their presence offered a brief respite, but the dread lingered, casting a long shadow over our newfound sanctuary. The following day, we embarked on a quest to understand the nature of the ominous figure who had invaded our lives. Knocking on neighbors' doors, we encountered a couple who shared chilling insights about our uninvited visitor. It transpired that he had a dark history of violence and drug addiction, an unsettling presence lurking just around the corner from our home. Our pursuit of justice led us to report this menacing figure to the police. However, without concrete evidence, we were left to grapple with the unresolved trauma of his intrusion.
The specter of his presence continues to haunt our thoughts, a reminder of the vulnerability that can shatter the tranquility of a suburban idyll.